Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All praises are Allah's, Lord of the worlds, and may His peace and blessings be upon our Master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and His pure Immaculate Ahlul Bayt. So it's an honor to be here once again. It was a pleasure to accept this invitation. This is the 6th time now in a year that I'm coming to America. And when I calculated the days, I've been in America for 1/3 of the last 1 year. Because for the month of Ramadan, it was quite a long time. So, and I've been facing a lot of trials here because I'm on the brink of being discharged by the Hujjah because they're against me coming here. Manchester's wants to kick me out because I'm producing papers from the PhD, but the PhD isn't finished. And I'm 1 year behind now. That's because of LA. And finally, my family. It's very difficult to be distanced from them. From a fiqhi perspective, if you move away from your wife for more than 4 days, she has to give consent. So as you can imagine, I've been giving her a lot of presents to get that consent. But this time it was very... But this time it was very difficult to get her consent because tonight is our 16th anniversary. Yes, yes, yes. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So to get the consent, she said, I want 3 things now. She gets more and more intelligent every time. The first was all the thawab that I acquire in tabligh has to go to her. The second, the third I can't say, but the second is, I can't remember this. Oh yes, for everyone to pray for her. Yes, she has this hajat, yes. But the third is something else, okay. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. For the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I want to give a very short commentary on the very good trailer which Al-Hujjah put. I think you must all have seen the trailer. I don't know who organized the trailer. Is he here? Oh yes, it was a very good trailer. You picked the right statements at the right time. Everything was perfect. So Brother Kauthar said, activism is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Now first of all, let's look into the meaning of marathon, because you know the marathon was the name of a place that the Greeks, when they wanted to defeat the Persians many thousands of years ago, they had to travel around 40 kilometers to get to this place called Marathon to defeat the Persians. So when Brother Kauthar says activism is not a sprint, it's a marathon, in order to defeat the Persians of your nafs, this marathon is important. It's not a sprint. You have to defeat those Persians. Okay. Okay. But marathon, it takes time. It takes years. The marathon that we want to undergo. Most of us won't finish this marathon due to an incapacity either in direction, speed, or objective. Incapacity in direction, we may not have or may not acquire the minimum that is required, and that's taqwa, doing the wajibat, refraining from the muharramat. Many of us may not even be in that direction and may never be. So there's no hope to finish the marathon. Some of us may be on the right direction, but the speed is problematic. We're going too slow and we'll never finish the marathon. Here, to speed in the process, to help us succeed in finishing the marathon, we have to use a tool called muraqabah. And muraqabah is this scrutiny, action to action, moment to moment during your lives. it's a tuning of the niyyah. You have to tune, harmonize the intention in a particular way. And it's a function of the eye. The eye has to do this. And inshallah, I'll be speaking about exactly how we have to tune our niyyah, how we must execute muraqabah. And the objective. Some people may have the wrong objectives. And the objectives is dedicating oneself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one's actions to Allah. This dedication, this ikhlas has many degrees, which I'll refer to inshallah. Then Brother Kauthar said, don't ask yourselves what you're going to do when you return to your communities. What are we going to dedicate our lives to when we return? Our lives, ourselves. Not only our actions, but ourselves. These words were chosen. I really enjoyed this trailer. I watched it 5 or 6 times. They were very exact, very precise words. What are we going to dedicate our lives to when we return? Well, the answer is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But how? And this will be covered inshallah. Then he said, we're going to give the tools for us to dedicate ourselves. Now the tool which I'll be discussing in this lecture is that of muraqabah. It's a very important tool, and I'll go into it in some depth. Then Brother Sheikh Ja'far Muhibbullah came, who's I've never seen him, but I've heard very good of him wherever I go. He's a very strong scholar. He said, activism begins with the self, it ends with the self. And this is a very deep statement. Everything, all perfection lies inside. It's all in here. Perfection can't be found outside. It's all inside. Try not to get preoccupied with outside yourselves. Focus on your inside. Perfection isn't to be found in books, isn't to be found in people, isn't to be found on television. Everything is inside. Everything starts and ends with the self. Man arafa nafsa arafa rabbah. Whoever acquires gnosis with a G of oneself will acquire gnosis of Allah, will know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This important prophetic tradition can be extrapolated by a verse of the Holy Quran. In logic, we have a term aks naqid, which means an obverted contrary to a statement. If a statement is true, its aks naqid is also true, has to be true. So if I say, if I enter at 9 o'clock in the room, I'll start the exam. Its aks naqid will be, if I didn't start the exam, I didn't enter at 9 o'clock. It follows, it has to be true. Here, the aks naqid of man arafa nafsah arafa rabbah is man la ya'rifu rabbah, one who doesn't get to know one's Lord. Fala ya'rifu nafsah, won't get to know oneself. And this aks naqid is seen in chapter 59, verse 19. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهِ. Don't be like those who forget Allah. فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ, because Allah will make them forget themselves. And finally, although I added this just yesterday, I just remembered it, but I'm not sure if the Arabic is correct. It's the hadith of Unwan Basri, when it comes to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and really wants to acquire true knowledge, that light which is tantamount to true knowledge. Imam Sadiq, in this long tradition, I think the wording may be a bit wrong, but the Holy Imam said, إِذَا أَرَدْتَ الْعِلْمَ, if you want that true knowledge that you're looking for, فَاتْلُبْ فِي نَفْسِكَ, search for it in yourself, inside. Okay, that was just a quick commentary on that very good trailer. Now, before starting, just a few terms I have to define so we know what we're speaking about when I mention these terms. One who dedicates one's actions for Allah's sake is called a mukhlis. Mukhlis, it's the present participle of the infinitive ikhlas. And that's good. And we have to acquire this during our spiritual wayfaring. It's one of the stations. But what we want and what we're aiming for is something even more. And that's dedicating ourselves, not only our actions, but our very selves for Allah alone. And that's the goal. And if you succeed, you will be a mukhlas. That's the past participle of ikhlas. If you succeed in this very difficult journey, of which the ultimate objective is to become mukhlas, that's a good sign. And that's what our aim is. It's not easy. There are a number of preliminary steps, and we'll go through them one by one, inshallah. If you become mukhlas, the Urafa use this term, the Gnostics. It's called fana fillah. It means annihilation in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is synonymous to being mukhlas. And what it means is that now, although I'll describe it more in detail soon, but now there's no I anymore. You're a true manifestation of Allah's attributes. There's no you anymore. And that I'll explain in a minute. This fana fillah, you being annihilated, there's no I. You're a true model. You've incorporated Allah's attributes within your soul. This being mukhlas, this fana fillah, is also synonymous to the term they use in Irfan, waliyullah. Okay, and walaya has many degrees to it. One translation of a waliyullah is a friend of Allah, because now, when you truly love someone, you copy them, do everything. Their attributes are your attributes, and so on and so forth. A wali, the minimum that a wali has is to be mukhlas. But being mukhlas has a vast spectrum of different degrees. But the minimum is being mukhlas. This being mukhlas is open to us all. We can all become waliyullah. We can all become mukhlas. It's accessible to everyone here. Okay, now let's go through the steps gently and then focus on muraqabah, that self-scrutiny of one's actions, minute by minute, moment to moment, scrutiny of what one does. In steps 1 and 2, these involve the limbs and they involve actions primarily. The niyyah, the intention, is present, but it's dormant, it's latent. It's in a dormancy, but it's present though, the niyyah, the intention. Here though, in step 1, it's a step of taqwa. But by taqwa we mean doing the wajibat. Taqwa has many definitions, but here what we mean is doing the wajibat and refraining from the muharramat. That's step 1, with a general niyyah, a general intention. It's not specific, you're not tuning anything. But there is an intention, it's dormant, it's still waiting to be activated, but it's present. And here, in order to learn and acquire this first step, you have to learn your duties, you have to learn what sins are, and then act accordingly. If you practice this with time, constantly, persistently, it slowly becomes second nature to you. It becomes a malakeh. Taqwa becomes a malakeh, second nature to you now. This one ustad I had once said to the seminary students, said, this takes 1 year. And it should take, whether it's less than a year or more than, that's not very important. But the aim is to make taqwa second nature to you now. Your ustad in steps 1 and 2, taqwa, and taqwa becoming a malakeh, is your marja. There you learn your duties, and you learn what are sins, and that's it. You don't need to go elsewhere. Until it becomes a malakeh, second nature to you. One sign, maybe, that you've reached that stage where taqwa has become a malakeh is that you don't even sin in your dreams. That's maybe a sign, as an ustad once said, that yes, taqwa now has become second nature. You don't even sin in your dreams now. But the important thing is this, that the level of taqwa, or taqwa in general, taqwa with this scheme of things which I'm presenting is not perfection per se. Taqwa isn't perfection yet. It's only a preface to perfection. One isn't a true abid yet, a true servant. One isn't mukhlis yet. And one most certainly isn't mukhlas. To be a true abid, to be mukhlis, to be mukhlas, those are realized from within via a kind of evolution of the niyyah, with the tuning and harmonizing of the niyyah, the intention. There perfection starts. In steps 1 and 2, which are crucial and essential, and without which you can't acquire perfection, it's a matter of just you doing the wajibat, refraining from the muharramat. And that's a start. That's only a start. You'll be rewarded for it. Okay, let's say you suffice with doing the wajibat and refraining from the muharramat. In the hereafter, you'll be rewarded for that. As a very big scholar in Qom once said, you'll be taken to your heavenly stable. Stable is for animals. They'll take you there. You had taqwa. There's your heavenly stable. You wanted to suffice with the huris, the ghalman, this, that and the other. There you are. It's a kind of the materialistic pleasures. It's all recreational for you because you didn't acquire any degree of perfection yet. But you are worth much more. Now, there was this Iranian scholar called Ali Shariati. I don't know if you've heard the name. And he was a good scholar, and he really felt for revolution even. Towards the end of his life, he had some mistakes, and he admitted them, and he assigned 2 people in his will to correct his mistakes. But in general, he had this love for a change of governance in Iran at the time. He said something once. He said there's no difference between a mu'min and a kafir. He would make a lot of these statements, these controversial things. But once he explains them, it makes sense. But when he doesn't explain them, he just speaks it out to the people and then says, okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. That becomes a problem, yes. Anyway, here, the explanation he gave was this. He said, the kafir is occupied and all he or she wants is the materialistic pleasures of this world. And the mu'min, all he wants, the mu'min at this stage, okay, I have to add that, the mu'min at the end, all he wants is the materialistic pleasures of the other world. You see, in that sense he wants it. It's not a big deal to just enter a heavenly stable. You want to be waliyullah. And okay, we may never become a mukhlas, but at least to be on that path, at least to endeavor. Assuming you confine yourself only to levels 1 and 2 and never go further, you'll be a muttaqi, but you'll be spiritually static in barzakh. You won't be able to elevate in barzakh. You're a muttaqi, and the heavenly stable is waiting for you. But it's not inconceivable that your niyyah is poor. Your divine focus is absent, minimal. You're a muttaqi, but it's possible. We have many muttaqi people, but they're drowned in this world. But they do their wajibat. They do all them, they refrain, they never sin. but they're drowned in it. When they see a car, the heart sinks suddenly. When they see a big house, this and that. They're muttaqi, but they're prestige hungry, power hungry. They're muttaqi, but their ethics with their wives, husbands, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters is poor, but they're muttaqi. In short, you're a muttaqi, but your nafs, the soul, is still nafsul ammara. This needs changing. There's egoism galore everywhere. But you do all your salat, you do everything, and you refrain from all the sins. But the eye still needs slaughtering. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تَذْبَحُوا بَقَرَةً. Prophet Moses alayhi salam, Hazrat Musa, said, verily your Lord has ordered you to slaughter a cow. Do you know in Surah Al-Baqarah, the story of the cow and how a group of people killed someone and then they revived a certain cow to then get the bone from the cow. No, they took a bone from a cow to revive a certain person who had been killed in Bani Israel. And the story is very long. I won't bother you with the story, but that story has a lot of esoteric dimensions to it. When it says Allah is ordering you to slaughter a cow, the cow is symbolic of nafsul ammara. Qalu, and the people there who were abiding people in relation to the Jewish canon, the Sharia there, they did all the wajibat and they refrained from the muharramat. They said, Qalu, atattakhiduna huzawa? Are you taking us for a ride? Are you taking us in derision or something? What do you mean? And then the story is very long. But these have butun, these meanings. You're muttaqi, but the eye still needs slaughtering. Perfection starts from step 3 onwards. And Allama Tabatabai calls this step onwards at-taqwa al-huduri. Taqwa in presence. Intuitional taqwa. In contrast to the previous form of taqwa, which was a duty-bound taqwa. Here now, it's nothing to do with the limbs. You've perfected that stage in 1 and 2. It's nothing to do with the limbs. It's all to do with inside now. Welcome to the realm of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. All actions, or rather actions, accord only to intentions. In one tradition, النِّيَّةُ أَفْضَلُ مِنَ الْأَمَلِ. Intentions are superior to actions. Allah, note, beware, note. وَإِنَّ النِّيَّةَ هِيَ الْأَمَلِ. Intentions are actions. Now this action, amal here, is a specific term. Here is a realm of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. That general intention which was present in level 1 and 2, but in the dormancy stage of things, has now got to be activated, has to be worked upon. The more that evolves, the more that elevates, the more that gets stronger, the more perfection you will acquire. From now on, from step 3 onwards, in order for actions to qualify as actions, in order for actions, general actions, to qualify as accepted actions before Allah, they must enter those general movements, those general actions. In order to be accepted, to be actions which are accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those movements, those actions, must enter a specific mold, a specific filter system, a modulator, if you like. It has to enter a kind of niyyah, an intention. By who? Who has to do the entering? By you, the I, the rational immaterial spirit. It's a function of the eye now. This niyyah is a function of the eye. When you act, that action has to go through a niyyat system within you. You don't just do things in vain. If you want that action to be a true action, accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has to go through a modulating system, the niyyah, and then that action becomes accepted before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're now entering the realm of intentional paradigms. In this marathon, if you succeed, you've gone a long way. And you'll enter the final 2 kilometers of it, the marathon, although this will be evident in a minute. I'm calling it the final 2 kilometers, and it's a tunnel. And once you enter the tunnel, on having this modulating niyyah system, on entering the tunnel, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but there's still 2 kilometers left. Those last 2 kilometers, in order for you to attain to the light and become mukhlas, it all depends on how you tune the niyyah. And that's what I'm going to now discuss on the different stages. But before I do, there are four mechanisms of how to tune the niyyah. Just 1 or 2 other points. If you don't have this modulator, if you don't have that criterion of niyyah, action to action that you commit, if you don't assess it on a par with that niyyah, that action will be void. And I'll give examples in a minute of the niyyah, what kind of niyyah to have. And it goes in degrees. You start off with a kind of a smaller form, then it gets more and more difficult. For example, it's very difficult to play taboos whilst having that modulating niyyah. It's not impossible. And actually, then taboos becomes ibadah if it goes through the modulating system. If taboos doesn't go through the modulating system, it's an action done in vain. Going to the cinema, going out to Spires, I think that's where we went. Yes. Someone related to it, yes. If going to Spires, for example, it's okay to advertise, isn't it? No. But
I think there's only one of those restaurants in America.
Oh, right, okay.
It's not common.
Yes. If going to this restaurant is accompanied through that modulating system, then you're in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That action is ibadah. That action is good. And the niyyah is present working. And you're becoming stronger and stronger. But if there's no Allah in the equation, if there's no modulating system, no mold, no filter system, no niyyah, just going there and just eating, not remembering anything at all, then that's all vain. That's all done in vain. It's all futile. I mean, the Sharia doesn't say Bismillah for every kind of food you eat for nothing. The whole aim is for this niyyah to be strengthened. And this niyyah is in everything, from eating to the bathroom, to the bedroom, to the kitchen, to the workplace, everything. But you can be a muttaqi and lead all your life in such a manner that everything was done in vain. And after, let's say, 60, 70, 80 years of your life, you see everything was just a game. Because you never assessed your actions with that niyyah. Allah was never in the equation. Chapter 29:64, مَا هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَهْوٌ وَلَعِبٌ. This worldly life, and a worldly life is a life free because of your preoccupation with the worldly life and the false take you had on worldly things, the false take you had on your car, on your house, or on your job. the fact that Allah was always out of the equation, it was all just diversion and play. It was all a game. Okay, now what exactly is this niyyah and how should it be executed as a modulator? This realm of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ or muraqabah from now on has 4 levels. Level 1 is easier, 2 gets more difficult, there's 3 and 4. In level 1, every time you want to carry out any action, be it combing your hair, going to the bathroom, speaking with someone. Now these are very difficult at first, but they're very easy. With practice, it becomes second nature to you. It may reach a stage that going to a restaurant, playing around with your children, but the niyyah is always accompanying you because you've made it second nature now. So don't be put off. It may just be difficult in the beginning, but in level 1, every action you do, you have to pay 100% attention that you're executing and displaying obedience to Allah's wajibat and muharramat. Every action. Is it wajib? Is it haram? Is it wajib? Is it haram? Is it wajib? Is it haram? This is step 1. But every action though. If it's wajib, don't compromise with it. 100% attention has to be given to it. The niyyah here is obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything is assessed in relation to obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here, you have to make sure you just don't compromise with that 100% commitment to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But with every action you do, you're sitting on your bed, for example. You just wear socks. Still, but that's neither wajib nor haram, but still, it has to go through. In the beginning it's difficult, but with time it becomes second nature. Once this becomes second nature and more refined, then you can, on the same level, level 1 of muraqabah, is it mustahab, is it makruh? Is it mustahab, is it makruh? But that's only when you perfected the first part of it. In level 2, I'm just giving you the 4 levels very briefly, in general. They can get very specific. I'm just giving you Allama Tabatabai in one of his books. He gives them very generally. I once asked one of my ustads, why, can you give us more specific examples? And he said that you have to reach a level of spirituality to be given specific and more narrow modulating intentions to assess every action by. Because if you don't, and you practice them too early, you'll die. You'll die. Now what does that mean? It means this. Death, natural death, or philosophical death in Islam, is when the soul becomes independent from the body, perfection-wise. When the soul perfects itself and it can't acquire high levels of perfection with this body, it exits the body. That's the definition of death. Now sometimes that applies to a minority of people. With most of us, we kill our bodies with our diets and so on and so forth. But the philosophical death is the soul, even this applies to kafirs too, that the soul becomes independent from the body perfection-wise. But with the kafir, he can't be more evil now in perfection. He can't do more evil with this body. The soul of the kafir exits. If ustads give students like me prescriptions of exact niyyahs to have from action to action, and they can get very specific sometimes. If someone follows them prematurely and they have a wife and a 2-year-old, for example, they can reach that perfection prematurely. Life isn't to finish at 20, okay? And they die, and this has happened. And that's not right. A true ustad grows with the student very gently, slowly, step by step. Allama Tabatabai only gives the 4 definitions, the 4 stages. I don't know what the specifics are, but I'm just explaining. If you can do levels 1 and 2, you've gone a very long way. 3 and 4, even I don't understand. I'm just narrating from Allama's book. In level 2, the niyyah here is acquiring Allah's pleasure. Everything that you do, combing your hair, eating, speaking, studying, action to action. Will Allah be pleased or won't He? Will He be pleased or won't He? Will He be pleased? Even mubah actions now enter the process. Will Allah be pleased with this? Won't He be pleased with it? Will He be? Won't He be? But you want to gain Allah's pleasure, His satisfaction. And here you should empty your actions now from diversion and play. Actions which have no basis or no use. It's very difficult to want to acquire Allah's pleasure via those actions. It's possible, but it's very difficult. You have to kind of cleanse yourself from lahab and la'ib. It's very difficult sometimes to watch television, and when you go through that niyyah modulation and say, will I acquire Allah's pleasure by watching this program or not? This is the second level. This is a more difficult level now. Don't start with this level. You have to go in degrees. Or when you're studying, am I acquiring Allah's pleasure here or not? Even when you're having a rest, action, muraqabah is action to action throughout the day. In levels 3 and 4, both of these levels are in this one tradition from the Holy Prophet of Islam sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. أعبد الله كأنك تراه. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you're seeing Him, as if you are seeing Him. فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ, and if you can't see Him, فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ, verily He is seeing you. The second clause is the third level. At least appreciate that He is seeing you. You have to acknowledge with certitude, though, that He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sees you from second to second, action to action. This has to be acquired with certitude, yaqeen. When you pray, fast, sleep, help someone out, study. Once that becomes a malakeh, that from action to action, you have that yaqeen throughout the day, day after day, that Allah is seeing you, then it will be more easier for you to enter level 4. And that was كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. Worship Allah as if you're seeing Him. As if you're seeing Him. كَأَنَّكَ. You're not seeing Him yet. Seeing Allah is possible, but not yet. But it's as if you have to use a lot of imagination here. And that's okay. That's okay. That sense of imagination, don't worry about it. Use the imagination here. It's part of the process. This imagining Allah, which the yaqeen helps with in level 3, that what I call it al-fana al-khiyali, imaginative fana. Fana being annihilated in his attributes. And that has to be kept on being imagined, action to action, until you reach al-fana ash-shuhudi. Here you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the eyes of the fitrah. Here is the level of lam a'bud rabba lam ara, where Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam said, I've never worshipped a Lord that I can't see. It's not as if I'm seeing it. This is seeing. And there are many traditions. Once you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the eyes of the fitrah, then that fana ash-shuhudi starts, and that's the stage where you're a mukhlas. Before you were just mukhlis, until that point. Now that ka'annaka tara, for that to become annaka tara, it takes time. And we may never get there, but that's okay. From levels 1 to 3, with that modulation and that evolution of the niyyah, from 1 to 3, you're a mukhlis. From 1 to 3, you're in the process of dedicating your actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're a mukhlis. You're aiming to be a mukhlas. Now, even if you do succeed in becoming a mukhlis to some degree, depending on how you succeeded in relation to those first 3 degrees, even when you're still a mukhlis, you're still a mushrik until that part. You're a polytheist, you're a mushrik. But shirk has 2 forms. One is the form which this camp, Metochi, what was its name? Metaki. If you look in the hall, did anyone realize what is it, Camp Metaki? And they had 3 words. Did anyone notice what the 3 words were? Or 4 words? Pardon? Partners with their Lord. Yes. Yes. So one kind of shirk is open shirk. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, none of us have this kind of shirk, where we say this deity other than Allah is Allah. No, we're not mushrik in that sense. The mushriks that we all are, all be us mukhlis people, dedicating ourselves and our actions for Allah. I think I may need more than 5 minutes. I think 10. We'll have less questions, and then we'll have questions another day. It's just the importance of this. I want to finish at a good place, yes. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajal Muhammad. The mushriks that we are, even though we're mukhlis, we're dedicating some of our actions to Allah. Some of us are 10% mukhlis, some of us are 20%, some are 50% mukhlis, some are 90% mukhlis, but all these mukhlises are mushriks, but of the concealed type, where your ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being compromised. And I'll explain why it is being compromised. Even if you complete becoming a mukhlis, there'll be 3 shirky barriers that you're still not free from. Because even if you become a complete mukhlis, these words will be uttered from your mouth. I make myself sincere before Allah by means of this action. Because ikhlas, being mukhlis, is dedicating all our actions for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First you say I. You're still seeing the I. Now this I, you're a true mukhlis. So it's not the I of nafsul ammara now. It's a good I, but it's still egoistic. They call it the good I. You've passed on from nafsul ammara. It's the same soul. These are just levels of the same soul. Nafsul ammara is one stage. With ikhlas, it's a good eye now, but you're still seeing the eye. Egoism is still there. And this has to go away, this eye. Because if it doesn't, shirk of the concealed form is still there. You're saying, I am doing this. You're doing nothing. Then you say, I make myself sincere before Allah. You have to pay attention here. This Allah that you're saying, as a complete mukhlis person, is not the real Allah. It's not the real thing. I'll explain that in a minute. It's either an imaginative Allah, at best it's a rational Allah, but it's not the real Allah. So you're a mushrik there too. By means of this action, you're attributing actions to yourself. These are three barriers of shirk. That you're a true mukhlis, but you're still a mushrik. These three barriers must be eliminated. The good eye must now die. Who's going to kill it? Who's going to kill the good eye? You can't. Because you have hubb dhati. Your spirit has this essential love for itself. It can't commit suicide. You know, we have two kinds of suicide. A possible suicide and an impossible suicide. The possible suicide is this physical suicide. And even then you're not killing the eye. The impossible suicide, though, is killing that eye of yours. That's not possible. So how can that be got rid of? Allah does the killing. Allah has to slaughter it. Now, I've read this tradition before to some of you, those who went to Al-Nabi. I'll quickly go through it. There's only one clause of it which is important I want to focus on. So, in order for those three barriers, we want to destroy those three final barriers of shirk to become a mukhlas. One was the eye, which is a barrier. One is that imaginative Allah, not the real thing. And one is your actions. This is a hadith Qudsi. Man talabani faqad wajadani. Whoever seeks me will find me. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying this. وَمَنْ وَجَدَنِي عَرَفَنِي. Whoever finds me will get to know me, acquire gnosis with a G in relation to me. I just want to quickly go through because I want to just focus on that part which is important in this regard. وَمَنْ عَرَفَنِي أَحَبَّنِي. And whoever gets to know me will like me. The next step. وَمَنْ أَحَبَّنِي أَشَغَنِي. And whoever gets to like me will love me. وَمَنْ أَشَغَنِي أَشَغْتُهُ. And whoever loves me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this love requires certain actions with that evolved niyyah. Salatul Layl we all do. That which distinguishes the Salatul Layl of Amirul Mu'mineen and ours is that niyyah modulation which he has. وَمَنْ أَشَغَنِي. Whoever loves me, Allah, I will love them. And that there are a number of actions one has to do to acquire Allah's love. But those actions have to be with those niyyahs which we're talking of. If you're always, is this in accordance with Allah's pleasure? Or is this not? Is this? That's one of the signs of that great affinity you have towards Allah. وَمَنْ أَشَغْتُهُ. And whoever I, Allah, loves, قَتَلْتُهُ. I'll kill them. That good I will then be killed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَنْ قَتَلْتُهُ. And whoever I, Allah, kill, فَعَلَيَّ دِيَّتُهُ. Upon me is their blood money. Because Allah will replace that I with light. It's called that divine light. وعلى محمد اللهم صل على محمد ومن فرجهم ومن قتلته فعلي ديته. The blood money will be upon me, Allah. ومن علي ديته وأنا ديته. And whoever's blood money is upon me, I am the blood money. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here, the station of mukhlas, the station of fana, the shuhudi type. Here, of course, you will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the real thing. there was just one verse, chapter 622, is that replacement of the good eye with that divine light. You can look that up. I don't want to go overboard with the time. But once you reach that stage where Allah does kill the eye of yours, which you couldn't kill yourself because of that essential love, then you enter the phase of where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Hadith al-Qudsi, Kuntu sam'ahu alladhi yasma'u bih. That I am, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, I am his hearing, of that person's hearing, by means of which he hears. I am his eyes. Because now you're a manifestation of Allah's attributes now. You're seeing the real thing now. This will be explained all in this last page, inshallah. So on dying, that good eye now going, the egoism vanishing, and you reaching the state of fana, you're now a mukhlas. Mukhlas, sorry. You should have corrected me there. Yes. You're not paying attention, I think. This fana, you're in Allah's presence now. You're in close proximity with Allah, the real Allah. 100% awareness. But it can be intermittent though. It can be abrupted. For the fana to become second nature, a malakeh, then they call that realm baqa billah. I mean, we're going too high now. Let's just stay with mukhlas. Okay, now, this is important now. Right now, in this mukhlis, inshallah, we're all mukhlis at least, but we're mushrik though at the same time. We're not worshipping the real Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's an imaginative, a khiyali Allah that we're worshipping. It's man-made. The Allah that me and you are with is man-made. At best, to be most polite, it's a rational, philosophical Allah. It's not the real thing. We're supposed to be believers of La ilaha illallah. There's no deity, there's nothing but this one existent Allah. There's only one true existent, and that's Allah. One independent existent. Other things, the existent, it's dependent. It has no existence. There's only one existent. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ is. Now just to give you a very simple proof that none of us are worshipping Allah, it's very simple. If I was to say a hungry, young, wild, male lion is here, imagine it to be here. No one would move an inch if I would say that. There's a lion here, imagine a lion here. You'll all be just remaining seated. But if a real lion came here, all of you would have put me here alone and would have run out. Maybe Muhammad Azimun would have stayed to help me. Yes, yeah. But the rest of you, everyone would have gone. Why? Because you're seeing the real thing. If you're seeing the real Allah, you can't sin. You're ma'soom in the general sense. You can't backbite. If you're in His presence really and seeing Him, you can't sin. The fact that we're backbiting and sinning and not doing the wajibat is because it's an imaginative Allah that we're worshipping every day. It's a rational Allah. If it was real, if you had become mukhlas, of course you can't sin. It's not possible. So now, being a mukhlas, you can see Allah. Before you couldn't. Now, after becoming mukhlas, only now you can describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before you couldn't. It was all just up here. It wasn't here. Chapter 37, 159 and 160. Subhanallah. Amma yasifun. Allah is free from what they ascribe to Him or describe Him as. What people are describing Allah as, Allah is free from all this description. All this is just works of the imagination when they describe Allah, saying this and that. إِلَّا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Because they're seeing Allah now. They're in His presence. It's the real thing now. They can describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the same applies to the Imams, the true manifestations of Allah's attributes. The traditions which say if you go to do ziyarah, عارفاً بحقه, having true gnosis of the haqq of the Imams, wajib is obligatory. But the problem is, the Imams that we pay respect to is that imaginative Imam, that rational Imam. It's not the real Imam. We don't know the real Imam. If we knew the real Imam, things would differ a bit. We can't describe them either unless we become mukhlas. Now, in the Elixir of Love, that book where Rajab Ali Khayyat is spoken about, and I once spoke about this book, and I never aimed at attacking the Rajab Ali Khayyat. I was just attacking the pen of the author who was exaggerating the status. But I never meant to, because some people were disappointed with that speech of mine. And I think someone called me ignorant and yes. What was it? Ignorant, and he used this other adjective, but which made me very happy, though. I must say, yes. And with Rajab Ali Khayyat, the story is long, but he sees Amirul Mu'mineen when he does ziyarah. He goes to Ali Ghazi, who was the Ustad of Ayatollah Bahjat, Allama Tabatabai. He was one of the very sincere Urafa during the last century. And then he described what he saw to Ali Ghazi, and then Ali Ghazi said, "You saw the Imam of your nafs, not the real Imam. It was an imaginative Imam, not the real thing." And then he said other things too, but we won't go there. So I'll end there to summarize in 2 sentences. So we have to dedicate the self to Allah via the tool of muraqabah to attain to that which we have the potential to attain, the station of mukhlasin. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi.